Hey everybody, this is herculespetix, founder, curator, docent, and gift shop employee of the herculespetix Academy of Comic Book Studies. Today we're going to be looking at Son of Ambushbug, number 1 through 6, a miniseries from 1986. And this is just continuing more of the zany, madcap, bizarro adventures of Ambushbug. Pretty much the same creative team as last time, a few changes here and there. But let's start. Number 1 here. So, got a lot of great fonts here. This is Todd Klein lettered this, one of the great font makers in comics. He designed so many logos over the years. But of course, the art is still by Keith Giffen and Bob Oxner on inks. The S from the Ambushbug has fallen and hitting him on the head. I don't know why I pointed that out. It's not that funny. So Ambushbug is talking to his manager, Solly Berlin. His agent says that his supervillain license has been revoked, which means he can't have any supervillains in this new 6-issue miniseries. So, of course, he's very bummed. He was hoping that this would be a very well-selling miniseries because he's broke. So he leaves the office. He's very sad. Once again, we see all these great background characters. All of his character designs are just so interesting. He says he feels like he's being paranoid. He feels like everyone's out to get him. And then we realize all these people are actually whispering they are out to get him. Everyone's all like, oh, I had his electricity turned off. I had 7 anchovy pizzas delivered to his house. He gets home and Cheeks is waiting for him. Everything's broken in his apartment. It's just nothing's going Ambushbug's way. And now we have the title page. So the one difference in the creative team, I think just this issue, is one of the great letterers of comics, Gaspar Saladino, does lettering on this. John Costanza, I think, just couldn't do it this month. This the comic's called How Come You Do Me Like You Do? Do. So to get around this, there's a bunch of puppets, Ambushbug and Cheeks. And if you guys remember at the end of the stocking stuffer, it made it seem like it was going to be a big plot point, that there was going to be a class reunion at Arkham Asylum, and the Joker was going to play a big part. I mean, he's on the last page, cackling maniacally, but I was going to get Ambushbug. But this is all we get. Giffen and Fleming just dropped it. They're just like, whatever. So this puppet show shows Ambushbug and Cheeks at the thing. Joker shows up. And then also Lex Luthor, Brainiac, and the Anti-Monitor show up, or the Monitor. So this is their clever way, so they can't get real supervillains, quote unquote. They have these puppets. Swamp Thing shows up to help as an ally. It's just this potted plant. And then Ambushbug realizes it's foolish, says this isn't working. And then he wonders what the Japanese version of himself is up to. And once again, we see Mitsubishi, the manga version of Ambushbug. He's fighting a kaiju in this called Gogan. And it says the very bad first impressionism of Gogan, friend of Rodin. I love that, how Rodin does sound like Rodan, another great kaiju. I love just seeing when Kiffin does this, just assimilates different styles. This Ambushbug Japanese version, Mitsubishi, it's just a fun design. So basically, Mitsubishi has set himself up with a cozy gig, being the official giant monster slayer of Japan. So he gets a regular salary. Of course, there's really no giant monsters, or so he thinks. So he's like, what a great scam. But a giant monster shows up. Gogan shows up. He tries to hightail it out of town, but it doesn't work. Gogan comes up to him and summarily just swallows him, eats him. Here he is in his teeth. But then Terror Tech Roboblam shows up, kind of like an Ultraman giant robot. And he can't defeat Gogan either. He actually blows his own head off with his own gun. Now we just cut away for time to choose your own Hollywood ending. And these are all directors, how they would end this story. George Lucas, Sylvester Stallone, Woody Allen. We see Mitsubishi in the stomach saying, "I've heard of large intestines, but this is ridiculous." I gotta say, none of these, this satire isn't that great. It's just kind of very surface level satire of these directors. Francois Truffaut is just a blank panel because he's dead. This is a very odd page. Anthony Tolan exposed, the colorist. So we see his coloring, and we see his wife, Adrienne Roy's coloring, one of the great colorists of 70s comics. Well into the 80s, of course, and 90s. But I never knew that they were married all these years. So it's to the tune of the Brady Bunch. Here's the story of a man named Tolan who was doing some coloring on his own. He was lousy, we mean really lousy, and he was all alone. And it goes on until, and then they extol the virtues of Adrienne Roy, tell us what a great colorist she is, and how she's been doing all of his coloring ever since. And it's just so odd. It's just basically cruel. Like, I don't know what Anthony Tolan was probably feeling when he colored this page. Just like, Giffen, I don't get it. Where is this coming from? But once again, we get another great Mr. A parody. I love this, how the white and black thing, Mom's Apple Pie, Tony Tolan. It's like he's basically on the opposite end of the spectrum of anything good. And I love this. He says, black is black and white is white. The more they meet, the more they fight. The line between them was never more real. So eat your beans at every meal. It's funny as hell. So now we see Ambush Bug drowning in sorrows in a bar. Then we see this bald guy. And it's weird. He's talking to a word balloon coming from his feet, it looks like. And he seems to be ordering this guy around. So he says, go in there, put Ambush Bug's least favorite song on the jukebox, 17 times. And that'll drive him from the bar. It's Phil Collins' The Studio. Eventually Ambush Bug says, I hate this song, I'm leaving. So it works. He leaves the bar and this bald guy's following him. And then when he gets home, Johnny DC's there, but she's very changed. She looks like this now. And she looks kind of hot, actually. And she tells him the story, what happened. Apparently, in this other galaxy, there's this cosmic Badinsky called the Interferer. He was kicked off his own planet for trying to fix the scores of the Super Bowl. He came across a blazing sun and tidied it up. So basically he just goes around tidying up the universe, almost like Roy Thomas or Marv Wolfman. And he saw Johnny DC on patrol, and he said, that body. And he made her hotter and more feminine, I guess. She joins this supergroup called the Crazy Eights. I don't even know why this panel is in this comic. They never mention them again. It has nothing to do with the Interferer, but I think it gave Fleming and Giffen a chance to just put 2 more jokes in, or 3, into this comic, which I guess is the whole point of Ambush Bug. So right then we see off panel this word balloon. It's the Interferer. And he's saying, this Ambush Bug, he's a little scrawny. I'm going to make him better. Make him more comic booky. And so this is what we get. Amber Butane of the Amber Butane Corps. Obviously a parody of Green Lantern. Look at this great Kirby pastiche. If you guys don't know, when Keith Giffen came out in like the mid-70s at Marvel, he was, just as much as he rips off Jose Munoz in the 80s, he was ripping off Kirby in the 70s. He was totally doing all the crazy squiggles and the Kirby crackle. So he's done it for years. He's had a lot of practice. So there's some of these, like, that should not work. Kirby has these things, but it does. It reads as, there's this thigh. But that's not real anatomy. I mean, that's just silly. But it somehow works. Ambush Bug is all talking differently. He's talking like a comic book superhero. So just like the Guardians, he has these guys called the grumblers of the perversiverse. Very odd, just the sense of humor in this. So Ambushbug says he just wants to go home, and he uses his teleporting powers, comes back to Earth. And so I guess what Johnny DC told him, she basically said, you are the only thing that can stand between the Interferer and conquering the galaxy or the universe, because you're the only comic book character who knows he's in a comic. And I'm pretty sure this is the miniseries that established that fact. That's Ambushbug's main superpower ever since then. The fact that he knows he's in a comic, so he can, jump outside of a panel or just do crazy things. Just like almost like Bugs Bunny, And so I think that's when this was established. So, and for some reason he lands, I don't know, somewhere in Africa, and these elephants show up and trample him. And that's what he looks like when he's done. I really love that, how he looks. He's all crunchy style. I mean, even though it doesn't really make sense, every panel's got like 2 or 3 jokes in it. So I guess it's just like, hey, if we do this, we can tell a bunch of jokes. So Ambushbug wakes up, and so in this comic, you don't really know. There's a lot of waking up from dreams and nightmares. So some of it, maybe the whole thing is a dream, because it's very odd. This 6-issue miniseries is just very weird. There's some things that are barely funny, just surreal, just really crazy. Now, unfortunately, the Interferer puts his eye on Cheeks, the toy wonder, and he says, I can make it better. So now we see Combat Cheeks, frontline medic. Obviously, frontline combat, Two-Fisted Tails, homage, more so even Harvey Kurtzman. Tails calculated to wrench your guts. Look how amazing this Harvey Kurtzman imitation is. Just looking at the little ink lines, it's like, oh my God, that looks like Kurtzman. Once again, some really nice coloring, even though it's newsprint comics. Making the most of it. Really good stuff. Here we see a page from the comic. It's kind of hilarious. All these soldiers are getting wounded, and they're like, medic, medic. Of course, Cheeks is a doll. He can't do anything, so he's just sitting there. But everyone keeps saying, medic, medic, until it's this panoply of word balloons. And so then now Ambushbug, because Cheeks was taken away to this World War II setting, he's missing. So Ambushbug is at the police station, putting in a missing person report. Of course, when they see the photo of Cheeks, which is a toy, they're like, get the fuck out of here, you nut. Here we get another great Alex Toth-like cityscape. Very stripped down and cool looking. And then this part's so confusing, and it's going to get more confusing. So now we're introduced to this guy, Jim. He's practicing a speech that this guy wrote. And Jim sounds like he's a fucking moron. He's really a half-wit, maybe a quarter-wit even. And basically this guy is the power behind the crowd. He's like, oh, you look like you stepped out of a Marlboro ad. Men will listen to you. They won't listen to me. I'm a dumpy, weird-looking guy. So you're going to be my mouthpiece. With your looks and my brains, we can go to the top. And then I guess these are the guys they're going to address, these badasses. They look like mercenaries or something. And then it's to be continued. But it's not really to be continued. This character is going to continue to morph throughout the series. It's very weird. We have 2 pages of letters, and let's get to the second issue. I like this cover. Ambushbug entering hell. So we start off, we're in Metropolis. Someone's getting mugged. We can hear their screams. Like, well, please, will somebody help me? This issue is called Hell Again, Jiggity Jig. So now John Costanza's back as letterer, but once again, I didn't mention Robert Lauren Fleming is still scripting. And, I guess, I don't know, Julia Schwartz is still editing. That's important, since he's going to pop up a lot in this series. So Ambush Bug has taken a job as a taxi hack to earn some money while he's searching for cheeks. He picks up this fare, this woman, and she's talking to her feet, just like that bald guy. She's saying, I kind of like him. Do we have to kill him? And the guy's like, the bomb's already set. Whoever the voice is from. And the car explodes. The ambulance rushes to the hospital. 2 more really great panels. I mean, this looks like it could be from an old, I don't know, Steve Canyon or something. Or it's like classic comic strip cartooning. They're working on Ambush Bug, and then a nurse is doing the same thing, taking orders from some unseen thing that's around her feet. And she has a bomb. We see that bald guy watching. So obviously this is a big conspiracy. The bomb goes off. So now we see a graveyard. It's that Barnes Memorial Cemetery we saw in the stocking stuffer. It has a review, 3.5 stars. No relation, Clive Barnes. So Clive Barnes makes a reappearance. We see the grave of Ambush Bug, and a giant bomb lands on it, just to make sure, just to really blow him up. It turns out this is the work of the Interferer. So he basically tells the creative crew, he says, you guys have screwed up everything. I'm taking over this comic. In fact, we're starting at the beginning the way I want to do it. So this is called Space Bug. And basically this is literally the first 2 pages of the comic, but the way the Interferer wants it. So it's a science fiction setting, and we hear a guy yelling, he's getting mugged. He's like, but it's this amazing weird slang. You know, in the futuristic movies and books, they give people weird little dialects and stuff. These are really fun to read. Robert Lauren Fleming does a great job. So there's the woman getting her, well, it's not a taxi, it's called something different. Here's an example. Glimmer, I'm not really a Transvet clon. I only shooped this whordunk so I could moo some much mech drac while I rebone my little Zud. Just reading that made me cough. And my mouth couldn't handle it. My throat couldn't handle it. But in this one, when she blows him up, it's like an atomic bomb. She blows him up real good. And now we see Ambush Bug is in blackness. It's like, what the hell's going on? He sees a little door. He opens it up. And, of course, it's the doorway into hell. I really like this lettering here. It looks like just doesn't look like anything in a mainstream comic to me. So, I guess it's the way to hell. He's not quite in hell. And he sees his guardian angel. And the guardian angel takes the opportunity to tell him that he's never liked him. Say, I always hated you, Ambush Bug. I'm glad you're in hell. I'm glad you're dead. But he does lead him to hell. And Ambush Bug descends into the pit. He has to go to reception first and answer some questions. Another great, well-designed secondary character. I love the way he draws this lady. And I guess the first trial he has to go to is he has to do stand-up comedy for a millennia or something. And this to him is the greatest injustice. We get to see even more great faces. Look at this guy's face over here too. This is the judge. So then he gets sent to a court. 1.5 stars, a travesty of justice, Clive Barnes. And now this guy condemns him to a different fate, that he has to jitterbug with fat ladies. And here we see the fat ladies. I love the look of these women. It's like Munoz meets Botero. And so now, then we cut away to another Combat Cheeks frontline medic. Now this is kind of a mixed up parody, because they still do the EC sidebar, but this is obviously the GI Combat lettering logo, and he's obviously doing Joe Kubert inking. So this is, I don't know, maybe it's early GI Combat. It started in the 50s, maybe they did have something like that. I love this, how it's like, read the talking helmets of Hitler. These helmets are just talking to each other. So dumb, but kind of funny. So now we have a little a snippet of a story. It's a first-person narration of the soldier who has fallen in love with Cheeks. And look at this amazing Qbert right there. That's a really good Qbert imitation. He gets wounded, and then at the last panel, he says, Cheeks was playing it cool, but I knew he was coming apart inside because he was so shaken by my impending death, he totally forgot to treat my wounds. So once again, everyone just acts like Cheeks is a medic, even though he's a doll who doesn't do anything. So now Ambush Bug is just thinking to himself, this is the worst. I gotta figure out something. I'll do anything to get out of hell. And then he looks over, he sees a door that says exit. And he's like, am I reading that right? And he walks over, looks both ways. It's an exit. He walks right out of it into Metropolis. Some more really great panels there. So I guess it's just that easy to get out of hell if you're lucky enough to be near that door. And so now Ambush Bug is still in despair. Cheeks is missing. He's penniless. But at least he's not in hell. So meanwhile, we see another one of those guys who's taking orders from somewhere near his feet. And now we finally find out why. These are all the foot soldiers of Argyle. Argyle, the evil sock, is back. So we see him on a space station, the Bureau. And this one guy's calling in, just saying, yeah, Ambush Bug is still alive, boss. So now we find out the master plan of Argyle. It's actually the plan of steel, he calls it. But first, he tells us how he invented this thing, the Laundromatrix Hypno-Transportec, which not only cleaned all of his servant socks, his servile socks, but it sent them to Earth. Anyone who put those socks on becomes the slave of that sock. Of course, he calls them my foot soldiers. This character even says, very funny pun, ha ha ha. The sleeve. So then he has been sending all these foot soldiers out to make Ambush Bug's life miserable. But this is all leading up to his big plan of steel, Operation Big Boot. And we see Superman's boot. So just imagine the havoc they can wreak with that. I actually can't. It's ludicrous, but it's a funny idea. Now we cut away to the friendly little island in the sea, Japan. Whenever he talks about Japan in all of these comics, he always refers to it as the friendly little island in the sea. And then so now we see a different take on manga from Giffen, making fun of samurai comics. And we see Jerry Mathers as the Cleaver, who we saw. He's one of Ambush Bug's teammates in the Uh-Oh Squad, which I think we saw in the miniseries, or maybe he was the stock stuffer, I can't remember. Really good, definitely different, pacing and every art style. And then Ambush Bug shows up. He pops in, teleports in, and it's right in the path of the Cleaver, and he accidentally kills his friend. And then we see Ambush Bug in a pitch black again. He's been killed. So now we see that guy Jim from the last page of last issue. I like this how there's all these tags. Washington Monument, Cherry Tree, George's Bush. That one's a groaner. And then confused, perplexed, stupid. This way, you jerk. No, that's the ladies' room. Go in the elevator. And he shows up to talk to his superior. And for some reason, this guy has this really over-the-top Italian accent. Like, you must be a man of my agency, yes. And Jim says, cut out the accent. Cut it out. Just tell me what the hell's going on. So apparently, and the thing is, Jim doesn't seem as moronic as he did earlier. It's really just almost, I feel like Keith Giffen plotted this over a week or a weekend when he was drunk. There's so many things that he just introduces and drops. Of course, it's Ambush Bug, so who cares? It's all about the yucks. But still, it's a very weird, but it kind of makes it fascinating. You just don't know what he's going to do next. You have no clue. I don't think he knows what he's doing next. So apparently he tells them that they've gotten a little bit of Ambush Bug's uniform, his costume, and they realize that it has this ability to teleport. So of course the government's interested. Now we totally have this non sequitur page. You can play Space Explorer in your own home. Take a spacewalk during the meteor shower. Try a shortcut through a black hole. And basically you're supposed to cut these out like little trading cards or playing cards and play this little game. And each card determines your fate. They're all very bad for the outcomes. But it is kind of like a more example of some Kirby-esque business. And then we have this bonus page. I guess Who's Who, the DC comic that was coming out at the time that cataloged all the DC characters, they forgot to put Argyle in. So Argyle's all like, paste this page in between 21 and 22 of the first issue. And it's his little stats, his history, everything we've read before. We got 2 more pages of letters, and let's get on to the 3rd issue. I do not understand this cover at all. Obviously, it's a parody of The Flash of Two Worlds, that famous Flash comic. But it's just like this guy saying, look what I just found. He's waving some money. If it's green, it belongs to me. If it's counterfeit, it's mine. I don't get this at all. The humor, even the concept is just very weird. So now this issue is hosted by Honey Bunny. I'm not sure where she's from. I imagine a 60s comic. I love the way he draws her with that Veronica Lake hair. And even though Keith Giffen isn't known for drawing attractive women, and from the neck down, she's not. He's not very good at drawing anatomy, like sexy anatomy, but that looks great to me. Very classic, tough style. The joke is that she's really dumb. She's a dumb blonde. It's pretty dumb. So this is called Who Put the Pop in Poppycock? And now we start off in the Mojave Desert. Ambush Bug has just popped in. He sees a giant caption hanging over the desert that says, meanwhile, in the Mojave Desert, from the first panel, it just hovers. He calls in to his boss, and he says, there's a gigantic caption floating in the air here. Then he pops over to the Arctic, and he says, come on, I don't want to stay here. It's fucking freezing. So now we see Jim again. Jim is basically the head of this operation. His assistant Dell is there. And then he says, yeah, we got to pull him in. He's my brother-in-law. And my sister wants him to mow the lawn before dinner, so we got to bring him back. So they bring him back, and all that comes back is the costume. No brother-in-law inside. I guess this has happened before. And so this whole thing of Ambush Bug popping up in different places and getting killed, I don't think it's Ambush Bug. I think it's this guy's various relatives putting on the outfit that the government has made. This guy obviously is. He's not Ambush Bug. But then sometimes he is, and he keeps getting killed. I don't understand. I'm really confused by it. I've read this twice, and I suspect even Keith Giffen doesn't know what the hell's going on. So I like this, how he's all like, I've got an unhappy task to perform since my brother-in-law's dead. I got to go mow my sister's lawn. That was a great joke. So now we see the Cleaver, and he commits seppuku, Harry, and because he's brought so much dishonor on himself by killing his friend Ambush Bug. So then right then, another Ambush Bug shows up. I think this is the real Ambush Bug. He talks like him, and he finds the gruesome remains of his friend, the Cleaver. Then we go have this thing. What the heck is going on here anyway? And we have the guy, the Answer Maniac, and he literally just recaps the first 2 issues. And then all of a sudden, Robert Lauren Fleming says, hey, Giffen, this is bullshit. I'm getting paid the same amount for this page, and you want me to dialogue like, 78 words per panel or more. And then Giffen gets mad at him. Fleming throws his typewriter at him. And he says, they basically say, fine, you pencil it then. And he's like, fine, you script it then. And then this is what we get. So I think Robert Loren Fleming really is drawing this. They got him to draw this page. At least pencil it. And Keith Giffen is scripting it terribly. We see Jim, bummer, major bummer. These bummers make me feel tense. This is like really dumb. I like how Fleming, he tries to use zipper tone, but he totally gets it off register. Then we get a memo from DC management saying, hey, cut this shit out. Get those guys back on their respective tasks. This sucks. Now we see another experiment. This time it's Jim's cousin Pete. He's gone. Just the costume comes back. He says, man, my aunt's going to be really sore at me about this. So then this guy, we saw this guy when Jim first appeared. He was part of that mercenary group. His name's Perry. And he says, hey, boss, I got to talk to you. He says, look what happens when I put a drop of protein on the scrap of ambush bug material. It eats it. So the ambush bug costume has been eating whoever wears it, just consuming them. Once again, I love the design on Perry. Now we see Boffo the Clown. I'm sorry, Blotto. Oh, he was also a member of the O Squad. He's at the circus. He's fighting this generic villain. In fact, this guy, his name is Villian the Villain, who named himself that because he was tired of people misspelling villain. So he figured if he's Villian the Villain, people will see the words next to each other and know, oh, that's how you spell villain. It's not that. Really dumb. I maybe shouldn't even have repeated it, but I just thought that was bizarre. So weird that he spends all these panels explaining this. So once again, don't even know what the fuck's going on here. Ambush bug pops up. It sounds like the real ambush bug by his dialogue. And then I guess Blotto throws the villain at near ambush bug. And then we hear blam, blam, blam. And apparently they both are killed. And Blotto says, oops. Now we see Jim again. We get some goofy sight gags. He says, I can take it on the chin. We'll follow our noses. Play it by ear. That's pretty dumb. It's once again, Hugh Giffen just throws every joke he could think of on the page, I think, to see what sticks. Now we see the Interferer in his space station. Plenty more being a pain in the ass. He's looking down on Earth. I just want to point this out. Once again, a really startlingly good color effect on a newsprint comic by Anthony Tolan. That hand almost seems like it's glowing. I mean, they can't have airbrush, fancy techniques like that in a comic like this, but whatever he did, it looks good. So the Interferer says, I don't like this whole Jim story and Dell. I'm going to give it a different milieu, a different feel. So now we see little Jim of the ELF, elf, and little Jim. It's still the same story, but he's a little elf. Everyone's a little elf. Now we cut away to Ms. Mohawk, another member of the O Squad. She reads in the paper how Blotto committed suicide after killing Ambush Bug. So she's like, oh my God, anyone who kills Ambush Bug is almost like forced to kill themselves. I got to get out of town. And right then Ambush Bug shows up. She totally panics. She's like, I don't want to have to kill myself. And she runs away. She trips on the stairs and falls to her death. We see this newscaster, Gray Planter, the same guy from maybe the Starting Stuffer or the miniseries. And he's kind of recapping everything. But there's this weird thing about iguanas where Blotto was found in a hotel room after overdosing on laughing gas. And for some reason, there were 17 dead iguanas in the room. And then he actually says, in my opinion, In the opinion of this station, iguanas have no place in a motel. What do you think? And they go to a man in the street. He's just like, iguanas can stay in hotels. It's just so weird here. It's just stream of consciousness. It's nuts. Here's another weird thing where, if you guys remember, last time we saw Great Planter, the news correspondent's name was Check Trousers. The news story here is that he's just entered the superhero game, and he's named himself Capitano Iguano. We never see him again. You'd think, okay, this is leading up to something, but no. Now we cut away to one of the elves who works for Jim. He's being controlled by a sock. See how big the sock is now because he's shrunken down to elf size. And he basically, the sock commands him to take him to the ambush bug uniform that they have, costume. And he enters into it. Obviously, it fits him very poorly. He's just a sock inside this costume. So goofy. Now we get another Combat Cheeks frontline medic. I don't know if this is making fun of Blazing Combat, the Warren, short-lived Warren war comic, because it just looks more, I don't know, serious or something. Pretty nice drawing. So now this is another page where I'm just like, what the hell's going on here? So we see Hiroshima post atomic destruction. And it turns out, we find out from the captions, that the reason Harry Truman ordered the A-bombing of Hiroshima was because the iguanas were there and they were plotting to take over the world. So he had to nuke Hiroshima. And then from out of this, irradiated mist and smoke, Cheeks comes out of it. And then we see Cheeks with an X. In a violent new world, iguanas die hard. So unless you're as old as me or older, this is such a dated reference. In the 80s, DC took the character Jonah Hex, the great Western character. His comics weren't selling at all. Westerns were done, as far as comic fans were concerned. And they tried to update him by throwing him into this post-apocalyptic future. And the comic was just called Hex. So that's why it's Cheeks with an X. Kind of similar logo. And they try to turn Jonah Hex into some Mad Max type comic. I never read them. I don't know anyone who ever read those. Maybe they're interesting. I don't know. If any of you have read those Hex comics, please tell me in the comments below if they're, what they're like. But even as a kid, I loved post-apocalyptic stuff. I did not want to read those. I was like, this looks so stupid. Look how Cheeks even has the hair lip, the Jonah Hex fucked up lip thing. Once again, ambush bug. He's in a bar, drowning in sorrows. And Jim, little elf Jim, crawls on the ground up to ambush bug. And he's like, ambush bug, I came here. I'm fatally wounded. But I came here to warn you about the empty costume with the sock in it and their plan. And we have no clue why he's fatally wounded. Once again, Keith Giffen doesn't really give a shit. He's like, nah, let's get this story going. Keep it moving along. So he basically tells Ambush Bug that Argyle is behind everything. So, and then Ambush Bug just turns to the bartender and says, hey, so how about those Yankees? He doesn't give a shit what this guy says, what Jim said. We're back at the Bureau, and Argyle is riling up his troops, and the plan of steel is underway. I guess I could say underfoot. And we see that guy, the agent in the costume, with Superman's boot heading towards Metropolis. Meanwhile, Argyle lands on Earth. I'm sorry, not Argyle. The Interferer lands on Earth. Got some nice Kirby crackle going on there. And once again, he's tidying up everything. And now we finally get to see him. I love this. This doesn't even look like Giffen to me. Actually, to me, for some reason, the only artist I can think of when I look at this is Steve Rude. Those weird aliens that sometimes have a nexus. And he's singing Casey and the Sunshine Bands. That's the way I like it. I don't know why I find this fascinating, the way he draws his face. Now we have Meet the Creators. So obviously these are all goofy and jokey. Bob Oxner looks like Wanna Beast for some reason. Kind of funny. And then Honey Bunny leads out the issue. And whatever. She's just being silly and dumb. That's the joke. More letter pages. Actually, is this the letter page? That's kind of interesting. I never saw this before. I guess it's the next one. Hopefully I'll remember to point it out. But number 4 here. Yeah. A lot of these covers are just they're kind of lackluster. They don't really draw you in. So now we start off with a parody of the Comics Journal. And once again, I got to say, this satire is pretty light. I don't think Keith Giffen has read the Comics Journal much, because he makes the Comics Journal seem like it was the National Enquirer, like it was all about gossip. And yeah, they talked about everything. So sometimes they would have stories that were gossipy, like, oh, Michael Fleischer's mad at Marvel. But they just make it seem like that's all it is. And I like this Sugar and Spike. Spike when he's older with a mustache. Experience the new Ronin amputation diet, because Ronin was relatively new at the time. We have an editorial from Arnie Glib. This is a pretty good parody of Gary Roth, because he's this total asshole-ish elitist. At least, that's the people thought of the guy. And he kind of plays it up in his editorials in those comics, in Comics Journals. I should know, because I've read almost all of them. I'm reading all the Comics Journals for the first issue slowly over the years. Here's Honey Bunny reviewing comics. Very poorly. And now I love this. Facts from Fiction. Newsflash. Keith Giffen is going to change who he swipes from. Instead of swiping from Jose Munoz, it doesn't say that, but he's going to start swiping from Charles Schultz. And so this is going to be the new ambush bug. This one's talking about how he's going to start, he may swipe Fred Hembeck one day. It's a pretty good Hembeck swipe. And then we also hear about Argyle talking about his plan. So this is like a little recap for the story. I love that Giffen could make fun of himself, because he was, at this point, I'm pretty sure the Comics Journal was already on his case, showing the swipe files, how much he swiped from Munoz. I mean, it's not just an influence, he stole panels. It's pretty much plagiarism sometimes. So it's funny that he could laugh at himself. So now, that foot soldier, well, full-on sock in the ambush bug costume, he's at the New York subway, or Metropolis subway, and these tough guys come up to him and say, hey, we want that boot. And they beat the shit out of him with crowbars and take it. Now we cut away. Once again, I love this. The captions are just weird. All of a sudden, Robert Lauren Fleming's all like, imagine that you are ambush bug and that you are swinging on a thin rope. Ambush bug's thinking, why am I swinging on a rope? I teleport. I don't ever do this. He says, God, I feel like Tarzan. Imagine that you are Tarzan. You are tall, dark, and exceptionally handsome. And he's like, and Ambush Bug says, what's with these bizarre captions? Has Fleming popped his cork? Imagine that you were popping your cork. Imagine that you were me, Robert Lauren Fleming, and that you have big power. Imagine you are the king of captions. And we see the title of this is Mind Slaves of the Caption King. And everyone else is listed after their function, slave, slave, slave. And then Robert Lauren Fleming is Caption King. I just love that kind of crazy experimental shit. He keeps going, imagine. But then Ambush Bug just thinks it's Fleming. But then all of a sudden, this giant, stupid robot creature that they made up for this one panel, Macrowave, shows up. He's like, oh my God, Giffen must be in on this too, because he drew this. He must be a slave of the Caption King. Turns out it's just a nightmare. He wakes up sweating in a cold sweat. Love that panel right there. Really good. He gets up to shave, and he pops, he teleports. Now we cut away to The origin of the interferer. So on this planet, once again, look at all these great weird faces. This almost reminds me of David Lapham and Warriors of Plasm, because they're yellow, they're colored, they're jaundiced. And I guess this planet was interesting in that everyone there loved to read comics. All kinds. Superhero comics, war comics, even westerns. But I love how it's the same exact guy, just with a helmet on or a cowboy hat. This guy, Clarence Tooland, was the most popular comic artist until he wasn't. His fame quickly faded after a short while, and he was kind of drummed out of the comic industry. He went to jump off of a building to end it all, and some weird radiation, blah, 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 blah. It's just very silly. Something called rejectricity hit him, and he was given the ultimate power, and that's how he became the interferer. Basically, when he woke up from this, he was like, I can do whatever I want to the universe. It's all mine. Now we see that poor sock in the ambush bug costume. They threw him in jail. He's like, why am I in jail? I was the victim of a mugging. He says, we just didn't like your face, and we got to make our quota for the day. So he says, can I make my one phone call? So he calls the bureau in space, tells Argyle what's going on. And right then, a sock says, there's a videogram for you, Argyle. And it's a note from DC Comics saying, I'm sorry, but now that John Byrne has taken over Superman, he has first refusal rights. So you can't use Superman's boot in this issue. In fact, you have 5 seconds to get in the last word. And Argyle just says, but, and then the whole thing explodes. So that's how he just wraps up the whole Argyle storyline. This whole plan with the Superman boot, it was all a MacGuffin, or for naught. Meanwhile, Ambush Bug is going to the Interferer's palace that he's built on Earth. I really like this weird architecture here. That's really nutty. And then once again, the Interferer interferes. Whenever it goes negative like that, that's when the Interferer is doing his business. All of a sudden, Ambush Bug is in a boxing ring fighting this guy named Pig, getting the shit beat out of him. Then he disappears and this wrestler comes in. He starts beating the shit out of him. Ambush Bug teleports away into a Pac-Man game where he is eaten by Pac-Man. Now we have another Combat Cheeks and his frontline medics. I'm not sure exactly what this is parodying, but this is almost an ad. It says, War Babies from Klemner. Each doll comes with an authentic war record and real shrapnel. It's a bizarre idea. And then we see the Klemner Toy Factory in 1942. It was Hitler's top secret manufacturing center. It's just so weird. And then it just has this weird thing how this guy's like, oh, if only we could find a doll that's irresistibly cute. And then Cheeks shows up. And that's it. Now, for some reason, Ambush Bug is in this white, just void. Interferer zaps him again. So this time he puts him in a barbarian comic. Ambush the Bugabooian. From Grunt Comics. Number Grunt, Grunt Sense. In the UK, it's Grunt P. Kind of like to see him do that. He's not really trying to imitate like any barbarian artist, I don't think. He's just using his style to draw in that macho way. So the Interferer realizes that he's got to do something more subtle. The fact that Ambush Bug knows he's in a comic, he keeps popping out of these dilemmas he puts him in. So he says, I've got to be more subtle. And so we see Ambush Bug waking up once again, and there's a knock at the door, and it's a police officer with a warrant for his arrest. Cliffhanger. So this is the letter page I was thinking of. I guess these two guys, Mark Hayden Frazier and T.E. Pouncey, who I think did mini comics. I think I've seen his comics. Not even just mini comics. I think he was in some anthologies. But I guess they were deluging Keith Giffen with letters. Is that, I think I used that word wrong. Is that, can you use that as a verb? They were just sending them so many letters. He said, fuck it. I'm going to let these guys battle it out. Who's the better letter hack? They're all kind of funny. These guys were obviously not writing your normal letters. They were just trying to make Keith Giffen laugh. Just thought that was really weird. Number 5, another very boring cover. We see Ambush Bug in jail. The real Ambush Bug. Singing 99 bottles of beer in the wall. He's crying. Now we get a parody of the comic book buyer's guide, judging by this logo. And this is just a way to bring us up to date. Ambush Bug busted. These pages just look so good to me. I love every panel. So, of course, he's not doing good. He's very bummed. And then, once again, a page I have no fucking clue who these two guys are. They're like, so, what's the plan? The plan? I don't have any plan. I thought you had a plan. I don't have a plan. You were supposed to come up with a plan. It just goes on. It looks like almost like he's channeling Kurt Swan here. That very classic old style. And we never see these guys again. We never saw them earlier. I don't know what the fuck is going on. I love this page here, though. What's your opinion? Man on the street thing. Is Ambush Bug as guilty as sin? You want my opinion? $10. I'm much too ugly to have an opinion. I have an opinion, but it's stuck in my mustache. Crack me up. It's so silly. Oh, man. Giffen and Fleming are funny guys, I think. And this is just getting to see all these great caricatured faces. This is really good. So now Ambush Bug is taken from his cell and to meet his lawyer. And who should it be but Harvey Dent, Two-Face, who's normally a prosecutor, but he's like, I can be whatever I want. I'm Two-Face. Sorry, guys, I keep pointing these out, but all of these background characters, I love them. So this one's called Witless for the Prosecution. This is something that Keith Giffen did a lot after he became under the influence of Munoz. Which I think was just, he was lazy, and he didn't feel like drawing a lot. But the shadowed faces that really don't even work with the light source. Like, you could light someone a million different ways. No ways that it's going to do that. It kind of works, though. It kind of reads. But it's also just like, he does it a lot. And I'll try to remember to point it out more. But it just was definitely an artistic tick of his. But after reading this miniseries, there's a lot of things I realize now. It's like, wow, Keith Giffen didn't feel like drawing much that day. So, hey, I'll come up with a gag where I won't have to draw much. So, of course, Harvey Dent is just totally not defending Ambush Bug. He's basically prosecuting him, even though he's his lawyer. And he finally charges him with contempt of comics. This is another interesting thing. Like, this is just, it's not funny. It doesn't make sense. It's like something from experimental theater. Or, you know what I mean? Like, the jury are just these, like, human-shaped bags. I don't know if there's supposed to be people in those bags or they're just bags. You know, it's full of sawdust. Very eerie, almost like weird and creepy. No explanation why. It doesn't really make sense at all. But not a lot of this comic does. We see Two-Face brings out all the exhibits, like Exhibit A, Exhibit B, and they're all references to what we've read. So we see Superman's boot. We see an amber butane lighter. We see Swamp Thing, but it's just that potted plant. We see the Fanboy Press. We see a reference from the first miniseries, the fire hose that he used to splash his therapist with, or he did something with the fire hose. They never quite tell us. But then he even brings out Jimmy Hoffa's cufflink, trying to tie him into that. And Ambush Bug's had enough. He's like, are you fucking kidding me? This means war. I demand a real lawyer. And I love this as the camera zooms in more and more. We see his mouth. It's still going in. And then he actually bites off Keith Giffen's pencil because he was coming out so much, I guess. He says, oh, damn, how's Keith going to finish the rest of this issue? Maybe Steve Bissette could fill in. I totally forgot about this, guys. I haven't read this in 30 years. Steve Bissette comes in for 4 pages. And I've never seen Steve Bissette draw like this. It's, very loose. He's basically trying to draw funny, which he's not known for at all. We see Ambush Bug. He's tracking down someone named Primal Bug. I almost suspect that he just said, you can write it too. Because this really has nothing to do with anything that we've read. But look at this interesting line work here. It's Bissette. I mean, Bissette's great. He tries to get help, goes to Batman's cave, goes to try and find Aquaman underwater. But finally, he ends up in The War the Dinosaurs Forgot, which is a parody of The War That Time Forgot, that series that ran in, I think, Star Spangled Stories or something, where these World War II soldiers ended up on an island full of dinosaurs. And now his name is Ambo, Third Blood, Part 24. I'm sure they got Steve Bissette to draw this just because they were like, you can draw as many dinosaurs as you want. So he's parachuting down onto this island, machine gunning all these dinosaurs and killing them. Look how loose this is. It's like really, but it looks great to me because Steve Bissette's just a good artist. I love this here and then Argyle shows up. This makes no sense. He's mowing down these dinosaurs. I love how many bullets he's shooting. We see the bullets flying off panel down the gutter into a pile of bullets here. You rarely see that in a comic. Really nice panel there. So then he finds him, he transports himself, and a talking gorilla comes up to him, a really well-drawn talking gorilla, by the way. And he says, King Grodd wants to talk to you. So we get a guest appearance from Gorilla Grodd. And he says something about how they have cheeks. They think he's the missing link. And then Titano shows up, holding cheeks in his hands, dressed up as Lois Lane for some reason. It's crazy. And, of course, it's all a nightmare. And Ambush Bug wakes up. And there's a note from Primal Bug that says, turn on the TV at 11 o'clock. And it's Clark Kong, not Clark Kent. Apparently, he's now lives on a planet of the apes. None of this will matter. I'm pretty sure they just said, Steve Bissette, do whatever the fuck you want. Just go crazy. Here we have Combat Cheeks again. I think this is a parody of Dark Knight Returns. It says Frontline Medic Triumphant. Next, we have another Combat Cheeks in that Ernie Colon style, like Richie Rich. I think this is Giffen, though. It doesn't mention that he guest drew it. Just a weird little gag. So here's How to Write Comics, Part 13, the dialogue. Once again, this is what I was talking about. I think he loves throwing these in because he's just like, oh, I don't have to draw much today. I can just draw that and get paid for a full page. And then Judge Dredd or Judge Bug shows up. This is really funny how he's talking to the reader and he's like, stop looking at that eagle on my shoulder. Come on, really, stop it. I know you're staring at the eagle. Because that really is a bizarre costume choice on Judge Dredd when you think about it. That huge shoulder eagle. So now we see the jury room with obviously nothing's happening because these are bags full of sawdust. It's really just weird and eerie and creepy. This is just so bizarre. So Ambush Bug, still in jail, and the cop comes and says, okay, I guess the jury have finally reached a verdict. Meanwhile, we see the interferer, who's basically like, okay, my plan's worked. I'm taking a vacation. I'm going to Funky Town. Look at all that Kirby crackle. And he zips off of Earth to go, I don't know, to some pleasure planet or something. Now we see Ambush get sentenced. Look at that judge. I don't want to draw the judge's face, so I'm going to use this technique. I mean, I know it kind of works because he's this imposing judge, so it makes him look formidable, whatever, or scary. But he rules him, he says he's guilty, and he's sentenced to incarceration. Just see what he did there. And Oh, God, I love it. It's so dumb. I love this kind of shit. So that's what incarceration means. We get 2 more pages of letters, and then number 6, the finale. Kind of a parody of that famous Spider-Man cover where Peter Parker walks away. He's basically saying, I quit. We see all these newscasters reporting on the verdict. And I guess he's also sentenced to limbo. So, yeah. Keith Giffen doesn't have to draw any backgrounds for a few pages. So, of course, Ambushbug is very bummed. He's just stuck in this limbo. We can hear some readers, their word balloons we can see, and they're like, this sucks. Why isn't he fighting someone? At least doing something funny. Give us our money's worth. This sucks. And then Ambushbug gets mad at him, and then he breaks down sobbing. And they're like, that's more like it. Look at him blubber. We have a little goofy page of Learn the Hokey Pokey with Mitsubishi. And that's all it is. He's just the lyrics from the Hokey Pokey and him dancing. I love this one, Zonky Comics. This is the Golden Age Ambushbug versus the Nazi Tigers from Mars. He totally captures that clunky art in a lot of Golden Age comics. This is great. Once again, here's the first page of the comic. It looks dead on. This looks like it could be a comic from that time. This villain called the Rat Bot. And I love how he has a little Hitler mustache, but really it's just an outlet, electrical outlet, right where his nose should be, but it looks like a Hitler mustache. Really well done. Pastiche. Now we see that guy Peabody from the advertising agency, but I guess the Interferer has changed them, so they're just sugar daddies, hanging out on a beach drinking pina coladas with hot young girls, and they seem pretty happy with the arrangement. Once again, some nice colors in that sunset for a newsprint comic. We have the Ambushbug hero history, and we see that Golden Age Ambushbug, but then we just basically see all of Ambushbug's real appearances. You know, his first appearance in DC Comics Presents, the miniseries, and it's kind of weird that, why'd they just make up this one? Why didn't they have a few more panels of like, oh, here's the Silver Age Ambushbug, or the 50s Ambushbug? I would have really liked to have seen that. If you were asked to sum up Ambushbug in only one word, and we see a lot of the characters we've seen, Durward Denton, his shrink, Dr. Quentin Quantus, he just says knick-knack, the detective from the first miniseries. His guardian angel just hiccups because he's an old drunk. And then we see Ronald Reagan, which is a very weird character of Ronald Reagan. This comic, who it is and how it came to be, it's kind of straight. This is really just saying, yep, first Keith Giffen does this, does the plot, talks to Julie Schwartz, and he pencils it, talks to Julie Schwartz. Here's another easy page for Keith Giffen. If I've offended anyone, and it's just Ambushbug seeming to apologize for all of the offensive things he's done. But at the end, you realize he's just done his job. That's what he's there for. We see the Interferer about to go to his, just travel around the galaxy having fun. And he goes to the planet where, is this guy's name Brute from Omega Men? Or maybe he was in Legion of Superheroes. And he's like, I'm going to screw up the Omega universe. But then he lands on the planet, and whatever his name is, Brute, he says, you're too late. Those with ultimate power have decided our fate. We've been canceled. So the Interferer is trapped in this canceled comic, so we'll never see him again. I don't really understand it. But once again, just this whole Interferer story, it's just Giffen got tired of telling it, so he gets rid of it. So now Ambushbug is stuck in this void. He's getting tired because there's nowhere to sit. So he finds a nub of a pencil that Keith Giffen that he had in his pocket from Keith Giffen. So he draws a chair, draws a door, makes it homey, and then when he goes to sit on the chair, he falls through this, it looks like paper. I thought that was a pretty funny sight gag. Tell knock-knock jokes with Mitsubishi. This is pretty dumb. But then Mitsubishi runs outside, and it looks like Rodin shows up. Not Rodin, Rodin, and eats him. So that's the end of Mitsubishi, it looks like. Now we see a pencil drawing an elevator in the void, and it opens up and an ambush bug comes out. So finally, Julie Schwartz says, enough of this void shit. It's really boring. I got an idea. Remember I showed you guys my vacation slides? Let's use them for backgrounds. So that's what we get. There's all these weird vacation slides. So obviously Julie Schwartz likes to take pictures of hot young ladies. I don't know. I love this panel here. That's a really well-drawn face. Or at least cartoon face. So now a police officer shows up and says, okay, your time in limbo's, you've served your 8 years. That's how long he's been in there. But then he says, but now you're banished. You're exiled on top of that. I was like, why couldn't you just banish him at the beginning? So he has to turn in his ambush bug costume. And a train shows up. A train that'll take him to his exile, I guess. And as soon as he gets on the train, though, he sees Cheeks the toy wonder. And so he's like, I don't care what's happened as long as I'm with my baby boy. And then we see Erwin Schwab being undrawn. And Julie Schwartz writes us a note telling us that Keith Giffen and Robert Lauren Fleming were so overcome with emotion they couldn't finish the issue. So Julie Schwartz had to get one of the ambush bug artists who have drawn him before. So once again, they get Keith Giffen's kid, Kyle Giffen. And so once again, I'm pretty sure this is Keith Giffen. And we see the train take off and it crashes. Everyone's dead. And we see a gravestone with a bug and Cheeks. Once again, doing the Mendelsohn thing, Jack Mendelsohn. And then, you guys probably wouldn't even get this, but when I was a kid, TV stations would go off the air at a certain hour, 2 or 3 in the morning, and a lot of them played the national anthem, and then they would fritz out, whatever, phase out, and just be static. So that's the last page here. That's all it is. We see the national anthem, and then beep, and that's it. Very kind of almost melancholy, sad ending. It's very weird, that ending. I could almost see why Keith Giffen and Robert Lauren Fleming were overcome with emotion. It's kind of sad. A very definitely a tonal shift, where it's like they slow down for a few pages and they're just like, no jokes here. Got letter pages and that's it for the Son of Ambush Bug miniseries, number 1 through 6. Hope you guys like looking at this with me today. I hope you like these ambush bug comics because I still got one more to go. But after that, we'll do other comics, I promise you. These are the only ambush bug comics I own, actually. So next time will be the last one. So I hope it hasn't been too painful. I hope you're digging them. And I hope to see you here next time at the Herculespetix Academy of Comic Book Studies.